And I would like to share, the sort of main venture that my family has been involved with as, an entrepreneurial story, which is that of the company Arvind. Is it possible for me to click, or will I have to? It's okay, I'll just raise my hand when I need a click. That's simpler solution. So the title of my sort of address is Arvind, a story of reinvention. And reinvention is something, which is a very core aspect of entrepreneurship. As Shailendra Raj's talk demonstrated, entrepreneurship has, a lot of facets to it. And, this is one that I'd like to highlight because the story I've chosen lends itself quite well to highlight. So, to give you I think a brief introduction to Arvind is necessary to give you an appreciation of what is to follow, the story that is to follow. So, I won't spend too much time on it, but Arvind is a conglomerate today. We are best known for our textiles, but other than textiles, the businesses listed here cover, quite a range of businesses now. Of course, fabrics is, our largest business where, we do a variety of different types of fabrics, but we are also forward integrated into garments. We are heavily into brands and retail now, which is a core thrust of our strategy. We have a couple of engineering companies that are portfolio investments that have paid off and therefore have still stayed in the overall portfolio. We have a couple of telecom companies. We have a real estate company, and then we have a division which is called the Advanced Materials Division, which is something that is my responsibility, which is to make materials for tomorrow's India and for tomorrow's world. So this is the suite of businesses that Arvind covers, and we're about a $1.3 billion US dollar group, and our revenues are sort of split now. Only 50% of our businesses is core textiles, which is perhaps not very well known to most, and denim is no longer our biggest business. Our woven fabrics, in fact, have overtaken denim a few years back. So we're not a denim company, we're a conglomerate. And this is more or less the spread. So in this context, how we went from being essentially a dhoti and sari manufacturer way back in 1931, that's when our story began, essentially, when Kasturbai Lalbhai, a few years before 1931, took over the business mantle from his father, who died early. He gave up college to take care of the family business, so to speak, and he founded 7 very successful textile mills of India and of Ahmedabad at the time, and Arvind was the most prominent of those. So our journey began in 1931, and this is the sort of manufacturing setup that we had at the time, and things went very well for us for a very long period of time. So from 1931 to the late 70s almost, Arvind was one of the most successful superfine fabric manufacturers. There were 4 or 5 fabric qualities that were being manufactured in that day and age. Most people wore Indian traditional garments, so we were into saris and dhotis. Manufacturing in post-British India was very regulated, so there was very little room to do anything new. It was all about manufacturing the best quality in the most efficient manner possible. But then something changed. India always, in its earlier years especially, had a socialist policy. And the government decided to sort of support very small textile manufacturers, what we today call the power loom sector. So the power loom sector was given many advantages. To work at a power loom establishment, one couldn't, resort to unions. So there was very little control over minimum wage. We had situations literally where people working for composite mills like Arvind would sleep during the day on the company premises because unions were very powerful at that time. We couldn't fire them, and they'd go and work at night to earn a double salary at the power loom because there you could hire and fire. There was no resort to unions, etc. There were also many subsidies. There was a very complex taxation system which it was easy to evade if you were small. And so Ahmedabad, which was known as Manchester of the East, with 70 plus composite mills, saw a very, very quick death of the textile industry. So we went from 70 mills literally to 4, and we were one of the lucky few to survive because of this. There was an opportunity to sort of follow many high-profile textile companies into oblivion, or there was a chance to, do something very different. And essentially the opportunity that was seen by the management of Arvind at that time was that the Indian currency was extremely depreciated. India had very, very cheap labor. India was one of the largest growers of cotton. And the Indian population was a very young population. And all these conditions were ideal for the manufacturing of denim. There were many naysayers that, in a traditional garment-wearing economy, bringing very Western concepts would end in disaster. But that bet and that opportunity to do something different paid very, very rich dividends for us. And we were the first to bring denim to India. And because of currency and because of cotton and because of labor costs, we were able to become the third largest denim manufacturer in the world in the span of 5 to 6 years. And that saved us from destruction. So we completely reinvented ourselves from a sari and dhoti manufacturer to a denim fabric manufacturer. There was a very, very high profile internal change management exercise called Renovision, which is still, touted today as one of the examples of how to lead an internal cultural change. So with the change in product, we had to also change in culture, and we brought in people from Hindustan Lever. We brought in one of the most progressive managements of the time to help us transition from one type of company to another type of company. And that's when Arvind expanded itself many fold. Now with that success came the ambition to do something even bigger. And we decided to get into not just denim but all modern fabrics, which included lightweight shirting weight wovens, which included gabardines, which included knitted fabrics. And we put an investment at that time of approximately 1,000 crores in 95, which was very large. We put in the largest textile unit of Asia at that time in Santej, which is one of our main campuses today. We had a tremendous risk appetite buoyed by our tremendous success of 5 years previously, scaling the, sitting at the highest most prestigious denim tables across the world. And this resulted in utter disaster. So Murphy's Law struck. We had the worst couple of years of denim in the history. So the product that was winning the bread sort of stopped bringing in the cash. We had financed this growth through a very, very leveraged balance sheet. And fuel prices, which is, a very large part of textile manufacturing costs, went through the roof. And we were using a very rare fuel to sort of, run our own power plants, which was naphtha, and that naphtha prices went particularly high in those years. So a combination of all these things, left us gasping for breath. And so, the opportunity that we thought we had seen for us to, become amongst the largest fabric manufacturers in the world, almost became, a noose around our neck, because we weren't careful enough. We weren't we had not mitigated risk well enough. And we went through another very, very crucial phase of the company. But looking back, this phase was very, very useful to us. So from the highs, we went to the lowest of the lows. It was almost inconceivable that we would be able to come out of that trouble. And what was required was the largest restructuring of the largest collection of banks. To engineer that restructuring was, a mammoth task, and there are case studies written about it as well. But through a lot of hard work, through persistence, through not giving up, we were able to convince the banks that their interests would be better served in allowing us to continue and restructuring our loans. And we were able to come out after a period of 5-6 years in the wilderness. A company that had learned very valuable lessons in risk management, in frugality, in persistence. And today, the Santej plant is the largest bread earner for the Arvind Group. So something that almost killed us is now, our crown jewel. We learned a lot from that experience. And so from being this flashy, almost pretender to the throne type of a company, we became, very astute, careful, risk mitigating company. So that was another reinvention, not only in the product basket, but also in, how we operated. So wovens and knits, this was the plant. Then 2005 gave us another opportunity to reinvent, because the WTO was coming into force for textiles, where the quota system vanished. First exports out of India were managed very, very tightly. So you couldn't manufacture many garments. You couldn't sell garments unless you had a license to export garments. Now all that went away, and competitive global marketing principles came into play. And this allowed us to become a one-stop shop for our customers. So we started our cut and sew operations, which today employ approximately 10 to 12,000 people, and are allowing us to be able to create more value for our customers, because they now no longer need to go to buy fabric from a separate place and buy a garment from a separate place. And now we've integrated design, so all they need to do is give us their requirements, and we can sort of design and deliver the range that they require for their brands. So this was an opportunity for reinvention. Another one came around in fairly recently, which is going from the India story started to really become a compelling one. Our middle class started getting, a purchasing power that was now not insignificant. People started having disposable income that they wanted to spend on themselves, and clothing is a very important part of one's identity. So the opportunity that now sort of surfaced was to go from a manufacturing company to a brands company. And we were the first to bring an international brand to India in Arrow. We were also the first to launch India's first denim brand, which is Flying Machine. We were the first to launch India's first multi-brand outlet. So we did a lot of firsts in apparel, branding and retailing. And today we have one of the most powerful brand portfolios in India of apparel brands that cover our own brands, licensed brands. We have joint ventures. Some of the newer ones have not made it onto the slide. We've got Gap, we've got Calvin Klein. So this business is now more than 30% of our portfolio and is growing at more than 30% every year. So this is what is driving our sort of growth and valuation from here on, and this is what is going to continue to grow because the India story is becoming more compelling each day. And so the opportunities of changing environment allowed us to change the nature of our company once again. We are also into retail, where in addition to brands, there is a retail business where we not only wholesale the brands, but we retail it to the end consumer. And just as this story is becoming even more compelling, we've already started to work on our next reinvention. So I think this is one of the key, parts of our DNA, that we are good at reinventing ourselves. And that's what makes us entrepreneurial. So what I am personally involved in is, advanced materials.